Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostrowski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
Welcome in, everybody. Once again, it is Wednesday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. It is now time for the Big O Show here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, presented by FanDuel. I am extremely excited about the show tonight as I get the great Greg Tompsett from Cover One to join me to talk a little bit of, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about the cap and some other things, and also our affinity for the offensive line position and defensive line positions as well. I think we're like-minded in that area, wouldn't you say, Greg?
Very much so. Very much so.
As we'll talk about the offensive line position pretty extensively as the show goes on. But again, folks, as always, if you want to hit that subscribe and like button, help us out here on the show. We appreciate it. And Greg, thanks for coming on. I know you're a busy man. You got your own stuff going on, plus a full-time job. So thank you for joining me. But just real quick, we'll start the show. Your thoughts on James Cook, his sit-in now that he's in camp, decides to sit in as opposed to sitting out, and just how concerned are you with, as James said, his business decision?
I think he reiterated it enough times. I think we know what's going on. It's really hard because separating myself from, from my day job and for going what I went to school for. Like I have a pretty firm understanding of supply and demand economics. I understand the impact of things like that. And separately, I kind of feel for running backs in general. Like, you and I both grew up playing football, and, for the most part, the best athlete in everybody's town played running back growing up. Right. Like that was the best dude. Like that was the easiest way to get the guy the ball in his hands as many times as possible. And now to see that position turned into whatever you want to call it, kind of commoditized, or, I think people overdid the running backs don't matter. And it really turned more into running backs are too easily replaceable. There's too much talent coming out over and over again. So I feel for that. Like that, it's hard to compartmentalize the fact that I've heard people throw out the stuff about, should the NFLPA have a carve out for running backs, or should there be a shorter contract for drafted running backs, and all kinds of these different things. Now, all that aside, the reality is I look at, a fourth round pick like Bucky Irving last year out of Tampa Bay and be like, I kind of think he probably could do a lot of the stuff that we have going on here. And, we've seen Bean cycle to this point where it was Singletary and Moss and Cook and Davis. And you see like this cycle of how they handle it. And we'll talk later about what Aaron Cromer and Joe Brady have created with this run game. And now I'm torn because, of course, Cook is the best guy that Bean has drafted. He had by far the best season anybody's had as a running back in Buffalo last year. That is the kind of guy that's getting closer to say, hey, as a principle or rule, I probably wouldn't invest a lot in running back. If I was a general manager, I would probably do what Bean has done to this point. But there is a line. Like if you draft Saquon Barkley, extend him. If you draft Derrick Henry, extend him. And I'm just short of that. I think James Cook is as close to that as I've been since Bean has been here, but I'm not 100% sure what that number is. And now seeing these negotiations, I think that's where the challenge comes in of like, hey, I love Aaron Jones. I like Josh Jacobs. I like a lot of those guys. And if that was the number that was getting talked about, I'd get my head around it, even if I don't love double-digit $1 million for a running back. But if it's, I want Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey money, like I can't do it. I can't get myself there. Those are, 3 down, 400 touch athletes that can be the centerpiece of an offense and the engine of a Super Bowl winning offense like we saw in Philadelphia last year. And I really, really like James Cook, but I'm not at that level with him.
Yeah, and to put an analogy, it's hard to spend the money on a Ford F-250 Platinum Edition when you can get a Ford F-250 Lariat Plus package that is basically the same damn thing other than the leather. I mean, you're looking at the same stuff, and it's hard to overspend when you can get options that are almost the same thing. But it's funny, and the thing I love about football is it's cyclical. It all comes back around. And you're talking about 4 or 5 years ago earlier, devaluing running backs and all that. And you look at the style of offenses, and you're like, eventually they're going to have to go back to running games, because when you spread things out of the box, it makes too much sense to not, you got to run the ball, right? So obviously running backs are back in vogue. I think Saquon verified that last year with his season in Philadelphia. You say a lot of things. You look at Brandon Beane and the situation he's in, and obviously he's in a good one. They've got all the leverage in this negotiation. Are you happy with the way that he's handling this James Cook negotiation on this new deal?
So I think he's said all the right. So if I put myself in even the mind of his agent, so short of getting the deal I wanted, I would at least want someone who's being respectful to my client. I would want someone who's saying the right things. And I think Brandon Beane's done that. If I'm reading between the tea leaves, an awful lot of those comments have been, hey, we tried to get everybody extended, but hey, if something works out, that'd be great, but we're still open to it after the season. Hey, we went right at it again, and we're ready to be able to do this, but if not, we'll be open to it at the end of the season. A lot of those things to me say, I don't think he has the expectation that that gap is going to be bridged between now and the season starting. If we go in and have another season and he scores between regular season and playoffs another 20 touchdowns, and that's not the anomaly. Like the 2 previous seasons, he had 4 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns, and like if we see that, like, oh man, and he has a great season in blitz pickup, and he doesn't have to come off the field as often in third down, and we can utilize the pass catching. You want to know what? Maybe everybody opens their mind to what that could be, but I get wanting to see it again, wanting to see a little bit more. So I don't expect it from both directions. If I was James Cook and his agent, I might want to bet on this offense is going to be great again. He's probably going to have a really good season. I would either want the money, assuming that, or the chance to prove it. And if I was Beane, I probably would want to see it again and wasn't ready to pay for it yet. So I almost think they'll get to the point where if we keep it respectful, we don't get anything nasty going here. Honestly, we know exactly what he can do. I don't particularly care if he touches the field again until the regular season game. Like a hold in at running back isn't the same as a hold in from Josh Palmer, who's never played with Josh, or somebody who's trying to step in and understand Cole Bishop or something like that. Hey, we need those reps to be able to be in there. Like if James Cook doesn't get a lot of reps in this, or any more reps in this training camp or preseason, yeah, we're probably okay. And then keep it respectful. Keep an open mind that, hey, we're not closing the door to this. Let the season play out and then see how it goes. Like I think that ends up being the best case scenario. And I'm glad Beane has taken that approach. We've seen comments from Jerry Jones or Mike Brown's comments in Cincinnati. Well, at some point he's going to have to decide it's good enough. Like, I'm glad we're not making comments like that to inflame this further. Keep it respectful. Running back is a very, risky position injury wise. Keep it respectful, keep him back on the field, and then see how it goes.
Exactly. And James has done his work too. It's not like he showed up sloppy. I mean, he showed up in shape. He looks good. He's ready to go. So I'm with you. I mean, especially when it comes to veteran players, I'm not stressed out about that. James Cook still, whether he takes some time off on a sit-in or not, he'll still know how to hop behind, the center and backside guard and zone and be just fine.
100%.
One question we talked a little bit about today on the Bill squad, and something I wanted to bring up to you before we get into some of these contract numbers and things like that. Do you feel that the Bills organization is maybe a little hesitant because of the history that his brother had in the same situation where Dalvin went out, shopped himself, got his money, and then kind of disappeared from the league?
So I wouldn't put too much in that camp, but I will say, if I'm aware of multiple whispers being in James Cook's ear, Brandon Beane is more than aware of the fact that there are people trying to guide James Cook through this process, and very clearly his brother is one of those people. I know he has a newish agent. I think he has an agent that's only negotiated 2 other NFL deals and only has one other NFL client, and Caden Prather. So you're not talking about, this isn't Tom Condon that's out there representing him. Like, you're talking about a newer agent who I think was has some experience as a lower level guy at another agency, but like as a lead negotiator, I think this is his first real client. So you have a lot of different people in James' ear giving him their best interest, but I always get nervous when those things happen of, is this an agent that is looking to make his name and how he can be a tough negotiator and that this is his opportunity, or is he looking out for what's in James' best interests to represent his client? And again, I'm not assuming that. I don't know. I have no inside information here. I get nervous when I see first time, situations like that. And then you add in somebody who maybe doesn't have, where again, I guess we already said Tom Condon, somebody who's negotiated hundreds of NFL contracts, that's way easier for James to be like, okay, well, whatever this guy says, I'm doing that. Versus now it's a newer agent that he believes in enough to hire him, but also your brother who's handled this and got himself a nice payday in the NFL. Sometimes it's hard to not have a lot of those voices in your head. So I wouldn't put a ton of weight into that element, but I do think it's something that Beane and McDermott and the front office need to be aware of.
No, and I think the agent aspect is a very astute observation. One thing I will say about the guy, other than a recent podcast interview, he's been pretty quiet. He hasn't been out there beating the drum and those types of things. So obviously I think, and I'm even curious, and we won't get into it, but I'm even curious if he was okay with this sit-in situation, knowing that he's the one that has to talk to Brandon Beane about it, not necessarily James Cook. But I did want to move on to the numbers and continue on this James Cook conversation. And in your estimation, when you look at the salary cap situation, obviously it is not good. There's still some kind of low-hanging fruit deals they can redo, like the Deion Dawkins deal, and to get some cap space. But when you're talking about a Cook number right now, if they were to get this done in the next 2 weeks, kind of where are your expectations on what the Bills are wanting to pay Cook, considering the fact that you've got Osiris Torrance that's going to come up, which is going to demand top guard money in the league, and then you've got Connor McGovern as well. It's kind of been suggested or assumed that David Edwards will move on, but how does this Cook deal then affect those two?
So if something were to happen between now and the season, that means both sides think they have a win. So for me to paint a picture where both sides think they got to win, one, you're going to have a pretty shiny initial Pelissaro, Rappaport, Schefter tweet, which means the up to money I would expect to need to be 4 years, 60 million, like 15 million a year. And that it looks like, hey, we got, I think 15 million puts him like top 5 in the NFL. Like I don't think there's any scenario where you see like a number that starts with a 2, the Derrick Henry or Saquon got.
I think it puts him tied with 3, because I think Derrick Henry is third with 15 million a year.
Okay, so I think like if the initial tweet comes out, you'll have a lot of Bills fans up in their feelings, like, oh my God, I can't believe 60 million is so much money. And as always, I always like, hey, let's wait for the details to come out.
Right.
And my guess would be that the details would come out and be like, hey guys, it's actually 2 years, 22 million, and then let's see. Like my guess is like, hey, if he has successive 3 straight awesome seasons, he probably kicks in a bunch of the triggers and hits the incentives and achieves everything that's out there. And in those cases, of course, give the 15 million a year. He had awesome seasons. I always want to pay for performance. So my guess is if something happens there, it checks both those boxes, where like the reality is we're only actually committing to the number Beane was comfortable with, but the agent gets the win with the flashy announcement. It has the up to language in there where it's not actually committing to 15 million a year, but he could make up to 15 million a year. Everybody gets their win out of this, and we're good. And honestly, if that happens with the protections that are in there, I'm fine with that, because I would live again. I would prefer not to, but he's really good. And if we pay him Aaron Jones money, like, I'll get my head around that. That's not we'll talk in a second of like what the costs are. If we pay legitimately $20 million a year in a 3-year, $60 million deal or something crazy like that, now you're talking like real trade-off costs if we can't extend some other important people. If we can keep it in that window here, you can basically take some of that money this year and give it to him, because he's at 5.3 million. You can knock his salary down with that signing bonus. You could give him like 12, 14, $15 million in cash this year, spread that out over the agreement, so he gets a nice check today and it doesn't increase this year's cap hit and doesn't make it crazy in the future. They can make it work where it's not an anchor around it, around anybody. But I do think it's got to check both sides boxes to get that done.
Well, I got to ask you this, because I always feel nowadays the contract really is the guaranteed money. When Josh Allen signs, everybody wants to hang, they want to emphasize and really beat down that he's took this friendly contract at $55 million a year and not 60. But then you look at the guaranteed money and it's record money, right?
Yeah. The most guaranteed money in NFL history.
That's the thing that I'm wondering about Cook. Is it more important for him to hit the $15 million a year number, or is it more important for him the amount of money he gets, whether it's 15 or not? So say they can get him to 11 or 12, but the guaranteed money's bigger. You know what I'm saying?
So that question is the exact question of my previous comment of what's the agent's priority.
Yeah.
If you're looking out for the actual best interests of your client, the up to money, that's not the initial flashy Adam Schefter announcement that says, per, and it lists the agent's name and gives them the shine in that moment. That's not what wins for your client. We've seen some, what was when Stephon Diggs' number came out for the Patriots, like, oh my God, I can't believe they signed him to, 3 years and $60-some million and $23 million. And then you look at it, oh, it's a 1 year, $18 million deal, which is still a lot of money. Right. But like, that's not 3 years and $65 million or $66 million, whatever the heck it was. So those kind of things happen all the time. And if the real priority is on the guarantee and the future security for your client, it would lean heavily there. If it's a lot of like betting on yourself, if you stay healthy and you achieve X, Y, and Z, you might as well not sign anything and wait. Because if he waits, I guarantee someone's going to throw a bag of money at him next March. It might be the Cardinals, or it might be the Cowboys, or it might be, one of these other teams, the Jaguars that throw some money around a free agency, but he'll get 4 years, $60 million next year. So if you're going to sign something that's not protecting your client, you might as well just wait.
No doubt. Greg Tompsett joins us from Cover One. Appreciate him coming on the show today as we talk about contract situations with James Cook and the likes. I ask you this. We talked about Cook, Torrence, and McGovern. Is this a 2 of 3 scenario? Can we possibly sign all 3? But if we did, I would imagine somebody's going to have to come off of a number a little bit to make that happen, whether it be Cook or McGovern. Now, McGovern has said on your network, on your film review, that he came to Buffalo at a reduced rate, and he was not looking forward or wanting to do that again. So without, just saying, hey, I want this much money a year like James did, he did it in a more roundabout, kind of a sly manner, but still the same thing. Do you see a scenario where all 3 of these can be on the team next year, or is this maybe a 2 out of 3 thing moving forward?
I do think that it's very likely 2 out of the 3, especially the fact that we just locked up the other 4. The fact that we hit all 4 of Rousseau, Benford, Bernard, and Shakir. Like, those 4 were the real core priorities of everything that was there. And getting all those guys locked up, I'm glad they did it. I think they got good values on all of them, but it's a healthy chunk of money. Those guys plus Josh and, Spencer Brown, other pieces like that, like those are huge, huge extensions to be able to get locked up and to be in that position. You start to get a few where a few of these guys start to layer out some of the veterans. So Daquan Jones will come off the books. We're going to get closer to some decision points of, what does it look like for a Dawson Knox, a Matt Milano? I'm not ready for a post Taron Johnson world, but he's going into age 30. Same thing. Like, I can't imagine this team without Deion Dawkins, but we're getting to a point where from a succession planning and strategy standpoint, those guys likely won't be making that premier money by the time these kick in. So O'Cyrus Torrence is a great example. People are nervous. Oh my God, we can't pay Dawkins and Spencer Brown and O'Cyrus Torrence at the same time. But, well, you can agree to it, but by the time the big numbers kick in for O'Cyrus Torrence, the way we structure contracts, you're talking about that would need to be that Deion Dawkins was still getting paid that at like his age 34 season.
Right.
If that's the case, that's an awesome problem to deal with. If Deion Dawkins is still playing at an all-pro, Pro Bowl level at that time, we figure it out. We'll figure that out when it comes. But you layer things so you don't, like they did with Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. So my guess, the challenge that you listed off 3 players that also sit on a depth chart with Ray Davis and Cedric Van Pran Granger and Alec Anderson and Tylen Grable right behind them, to where that's a little bit less leverage. There's not as clear of an answer for those guys, and that's a little more leverage for Brandon Beane, where he feels pretty comfortable. We're okay if we were to lose any of them. So not ideal. They're starters for a reason. We want them there. So that's where I think you now get into, what happens if now you're in a spot where, hey, we may need to be able to let 1 or 2 of these guys walk and go down that path. We're already set up pretty well that next year, if some of these guys come off in the manner they do, nothing. We'll talk a little bit more in a minute here on some crazy fun scenarios, but assuming we don't make a huge splash deal, you're talking about AJ Epinesa being a free agent, Joey Bosa being a free agent, James Cook, Connor McGovern, David Edwards. Those are some guys that are going to result in some compensatory picks that you're going to be able to restock the draft pool and be able to go through. And if that's, the Ravens have always been really, really good at this. If you can not only get the comp pick, but not really downgrade too much and have a guy step in, that's how you keep the cupboard full, because you get to throw more darts at the dartboard. They're not all going to hit, but if some of them hit, you keep rinse, recycle, and repeat, and you keep going through those. So I think 2 out of 3 is the way to look at it. It's a non-zero chance. There's a chance we could re-sign all 3. I think it's very unlikely. Most likely it's 2, and I don't think it's out of the question that it's 1.
I wanted to talk about this before we get into the big topic that we're going to get into at the end of a potential or a hypothetical situation with a certain player that many consider to be the best in the league at his position. But I want to talk about this O-line situation more. And we had a conversation off air a couple days ago that I thought was really, really interesting. This is a Bills team that their offensive line comes back, and it's very rare the starting 5 and then 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all back. Yeah. They've all come back. They take 1 draft pick on Lunt, the kid from Connecticut.
Yep.
My question is this, and you've kind of touched on it. I thought what you had to say was great. Is the succession plan Aaron Cromer? Is he the succession plan? Meaning they trust Aaron Cromer and his system and his ability to, evaluate talent and bring players in and get them ready, that while there's guys like, O'Cyrus Torrence, you don't want to let second rounders just walk. And that's why this James Cook thing is so volatile. But if you had to let some of these guys walk, you've got Cromer. Doesn't matter who it is. He's the succession plan at O-line because he's going to have guys ready to go and play at a high level.
So credit to one of my favorite guys, Brandon Thorne, who I think does a great job with O-line work. He had Cromer on his show, and Cromer said it flat out. He said,
I watched it.
If you can only produce good offensive lines with first-round picks, why do I need you? Like if you need a first-round pick at every spot, why do I need you? What are you coaching if you just get a first-rounder at every spot? So now I spent so long being a fan of this team that I just wanted to throw every possible high pick and high value signing at that as a resource. Just please God, find a way to protect whoever it was at the time, or now Josh Allen. That I've just become spoiled now. That now it's self-fulfilling. No matter what happens, I'm like, well, and again, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sold on Spencer Brown or initially. I was very concerned. I knew, Cromer was a huge supporter of him. I couldn't believe we were handing him the starting job without bringing in a veteran to compete. And he was fantastic. And now last year had darn near, one of the best seasons of any right tackle in the league. I couldn't believe when Black Wednesday came. I understood all the other math of the different guys, and I knew we were going to have to say goodbye to some, well-regarded and popular players. I didn't think Mitch Morris was going to go. And if he did, I didn't think it was going to be this swap of like, yeah, I know that guy played for us as a sixth lineman, but now you're bringing him in and you're sliding another guy over who hasn't played center in the NFL. And now we had an even better offensive line than we had the year before. So it's just become self-fulfilling for me that you talk about the succession plan we just rattled off there. If he's good, that, hey, Cedric Van Granger is ready to step in, and hey, Connor, we'd love to have you back, but go get your payday, man. Go get your check. We're happy for you. We wish you all the best, and we'll move on that way. And hey, David, if you want to come back, and he, like everybody, I'm sure Bean would make each of them an offer. And if you get more, God bless you. If you want to come back, here's our number. And if you don't, just like you stepped in as a sixth man, we'll have, Alec Anderson try to hold off Tylen Grable to see if he can start in that spot. And I don't think that Brandon Bean goes to Aaron Cromer and says, hey, what do you want here? I'll do whatever you say. But I think he has plenty of input and influence on how that's handled. And if he goes to Bean and says, hey, if I got to choose which one you're going to stretch yourself for, it's Torrence. If we're going to reach a little bit outside of our, get the best deal you can, help the team out. But if you're going to stretch outside your comfort zone, it's there. Invest in that guy. I think that matters to Brandon Bean. So again, if we see the opposite and we see them keep David Edwards and let Osiris Torrence walk, I'll be initially upset, but I'll tell myself like, well, Cromer had to have signed off on that. So if that's what we went with, I'll believe in it. Even if my initial response is, oh my God, what are you guys doing? He's now just become his own self-fulfilling answer. Whatever he says, I'm on board.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing for the Bills right now, and it's what I made my career on, is if you look at Tylen Grable, he's been said to know 4 spots. Joe Brady said he knows both guards and both tackles. If you look at Van Granger, center and guard, they've got Alec Anderson can snap if he has to. They've got guys that are multi-position trained, and I think it's finally become an acceptable practice in the world of salary cap football. You just can't afford to stockpile guys.
Even look the other way. A guy who actually showed some pretty solid potential at left tackle in Ryan Vandemark got hurt and got passed because he didn't have the same position versatility to move into guard, and was pretty notably struggled at right tackle, versus when he went into left tackle was actually pretty good. And that's a very valuable thing. But just the fact that, hey, Grable can play both sides and some guard, all of a sudden, imagine being a good left tackle in the NFL and getting passed on the depth chart. It's pretty wild.
Yep. And like I said to you before, I have to credit the great Joe Marino. He's calling his shot. He's saying Tylen Grable is David Edwards' replacement at guard next year.
I would have just immediately defaulted to the same rinse and recycle we've had. David Edwards go 6-man to guard, and that Anderson were there, but that versatility. And now I love that idea of taking, I know Chase Lunt was another guy that people saw, Brandon Thorne being another one who really liked him, as like, hey, I know he played tackle, but I think he could play guard. I think he could do both. And you have a versatile piece, and you keep bringing in guys like that. They're like, hey, it doesn't matter where we need him. You can play right tackle, but hey, you can start at left guard. All the better. All the better.
And I think that the Chase Lunt pick is even more indicative, or a sign that Cromer does have a lot of say as far as linemen to come in and who he drafts, because just like another one, I mean, it's another stamp out. He's the same guy. Everybody wants to hang their, they want to beat the fact that he's got short arms. Well, if you listen to Cromer's interview with Brandon Thorne, never once talks about arm length. He never talks about hand size or wingspan. He talks about being in what they call hinge, and where is your leverage and where is it best served. And leverage does not necessarily mean being super low and down and back. It's every athlete is different. Great interview if you haven't watched it. It's phenomenal.
Our right side is like the two polar opposites
Yes.
of NFL athletes
Yes.
right next to each other. Like Osiris
Yes.
Torrence here and Spencer Brown there are literally like, if you're playing with the sliders on Madden, create a player, like they're the polar opposite ends
Yes.
of how you would design a player, and they fit well together because he coaches them at what they're good at.
Exactly. And Brandon Thorne, by the way, does have every Buffalo Bills offensive lineman, starting lineman, in his top 15 heading into this season. So he does think highly of that group. And
I think he had
Aaron
him third
Cromer.
overall as a unit.
Yes, he did. He had him third
Yeah.
overall. So good group. So let's go ahead and get to what everybody wants to talk about. And obviously, unless you've been living under a rock like Patrick and SpongeBob, Micah Parsons has demanded a trade from Dallas. And personally, I think Micah handled it the exact way he should have. Anytime you publicly challenge Jerry Jones that he can't do something, he'll go out of his way, no matter how much it hurts, to prove that he can do it. So he'll probably be a Cowboy. But let's say he isn't. And Micah put out his list of 4 teams that he wished, your wish list of where he would go. The Bills are one of those teams. You had put out on Twitter the other day, or X, a scenario where that could happen. Brandon Beane talked about it a little bit this morning without naming names. They went around it and talked about, scenarios. He said the hardest part of a deal like this is not 2025, it's 26 and 27, trying to forecast the future and then tie in Torrence, McGovern, Cook, all these.
Yeah.
Is this really something that obviously that the Bills could pull off and get done, and then also be able to be healthy enough to function in 26 and 27 under their cap situation?
So you couched it correctly at the beginning. The first level to get through is by far the most likely outcome here is, honestly, like Sunday morning of opening week, just like Jerry did with Dak Prescott, we're going to hear that, Micah Parsons has signed a 5-year, $210 million deal, $42 million a year, a little bit more than TJ Watt, a little bit more than Myles Garrett. And some people have made the point that Jerry sees this as unpaid marketing expense. Like, hey, everybody's going to talk about the Cowboys for a whole month here, and he'll still sign it. And that extra money he spent is his marketing budget. So first, couch it. He's very, very likely going to be a Cowboy. Remove from that now for any team to fit him in, because I don't think Mike is looking to go to the Browns or to go to the Saints or to go to the, whatever. Like he's looking to go somewhere that he can play and enjoy himself, because anyone would want to pay him. Most of those teams don't have the room to do this. So everyone will be doing the exact exercise that Brandon Beane will go through. And although I've put out similar tweets on Myles Garrett this spring and Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin and anybody else that comes up, because fans are going to ask me, and I had to beat people off with a stick of explaining why we're not going to sign Christian Wilkins. I'm always ready to answer the question, because that's what people want to hear. They want to know, how could we do it? And we joked, before we went on air, that I'll be honest, I like Terry McLaurin a lot, but a 30-year-old wide receiver probably isn't one that you're pulling every single lever for.
Right.
I like Trey Hendrickson, but he's also 30, and there's some questions on his run defense, and they're both great players. And if I could just get them with none of the other costs that go into it, maybe I wouldn't. No, Myles Garrett's probably a separate thing. But most of the guys that come up here, realistically, even when I'm putting the tweets out, I'm doing it knowing this isn't actually going to happen. Now, with that said, if you were going to put together a scenario where, hey, would we want to genuinely over leverage ourselves, put ourselves into a difficult position where we don't know exactly how this is going to work in 2027, and that we're trying to prepare ourselves, it would be a 26-year-old at a premium position with consistent elite production. Going into, you would be acquiring them and paying them through their age 26, 27, 28, 29 seasons with a, not perfect, but pretty good health record. They would check all those boxes. And Micah Parsons is, people had questions, but he's not Myles Garrett's level. Well, if you go back to each of their first 4 seasons in the league, Myles Garrett had 42.5 sacks. Micah Parsons has 52.5. So if I'm going to invest in a 4 or 5 year window, it's the late 20s of Micah Parsons. Like
Right.
that is like the number one draft pick of
And
what
you might
would.
you might even be able to get another contract out of it too.
Yes,
Because they'll
you'd
only
be
be
talking
29
about
at the end of it. Yeah.
you might do another extension
Yeah.
with him after the fact. So again, this is not likely to happen. Like no matter how much I like stirring the pot on Twitter, like this isn't actually
Right.
realistic. But if it were those kind of questions, it would then entail honestly almost 0 out of the 3 of what we talked about. Like James Cook would have to walk, David Edwards would have to walk, Connor McGovern would have to walk. We probably could still do Torrence, but it would be tough. It might even be a discussion of like, hey, can we do Torrence? AJ Epinesa walks. We would probably have to make harder decisions earlier on Dawson Knox and Matt Milano. Like all the difficult things would accelerate and would be harder, but all of those things, and we'd have Micah Parsons. All right. Like, okay, I'll figure those things out. Like, yeah, I like the first round of the draft too, but I just go watch Micah Parsons highlights for the night. Like I'll be perfectly fine.
Right.
There are guys you make the exception for. For me, he would be one of them. The NFL only lets you trade 3 drafts into the future. So a couple of people were teasing me, asking like, well, would you trade 7 first round picks? I'm like, me? Yes. Luckily, the NFL won't let you, so you don't have to worry about somebody doing too much that you're only allowed to trade 3 of them. I said, but me, yeah. Like you give me Josh Allen on one side, Micah Parsons on the other, I'll figure the rest out.
It's hard for me. That's a scenario that's hard for me. Unless it's a guy that takes a snap, it's hard for me to say that one guy could just totally take you over the top and win a Super Bowl. Even Saquon Barkley, as good as he was, I think he solidified Jalen Hurts more than
he's a perfect example for you.
Right.
Look at he was just as talented in New York.
Right.
As was he, but when you put him behind arguably the best offensive line of football with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, now that flourishes. And I will say, they don't have Gregory Rousseau and Christian Benford and Terrell Bernard and those guys in Dallas. So I think there's a chance that he comes here. I'm not exaggerating, just to make the point. With the infrastructure around there and the talent on that defense, I think there's a chance he comes here and breaks a single season sack record. Like he's that talent, that level of player. And you have that, like, hey, you have Gregory Rousseau there. You'd have Joey Bosa as a rotational defensive end. Like this is a ridiculous. Like our 3rd and 8 in the AFC Championship game, you'd have Gregory Rousseau kick inside to rush at 3 tech with Joey Bosa and Micah Parsons coming off each edge.
Well, the other thing that excites me about Parsons is his vast experience at the linebacker spot.
Yes,
you could very easily then, when you play the Baltimore Ravens, slide him off the ball into a 4-3 look like we're probably going to do with Michael Hoyt when he comes back. And now you've got multiple guys that can make the defense bigger in big matchup scenarios. That type of stuff is as exciting as anything for me, is looking at matchups and those types of things. But, I posed the question. I was like, is there anybody in the history of the league that is a non-quarterback that's gone somewhere and just made the difference and had a team win a Super Bowl? Now, the example that I thought was the most viable was probably Von Miller when he went to the Rams. But what he did was exactly what you just said about Saquon and all that. He freed up Aaron Donald from being double teamed. He freed up the other guys on deep. So there's got to be other cats that come with you.
So I would say the more apt example was the first one that happened in the history of free agency during your tenure when Reggie White went from the Eagles to the Packers. So you add in, and again, I'm not putting Micah Parsons on Reggie White's level. Reggie White's arguably the greatest pass rusher of all time. Yeah. But I think you would need it to be that kind of guy where, hey, instead of slotting in as an awesome number 2 behind Aaron Donald, and you bring in a number 1 that now allows Gregory Rousseau to be a number 2, Joey Bosa to be a number 2, Gregory Rousseau to be a number 3, Ed Oliver to be a number 4. Now you're talking about that kind of domino effect of what it frees up the other guys to do around him.
Yeah, that Reggie was brought up as well, and I made the point Micah couldn't even be in the same room as Reggie. And he's that good. I know.
I can go back and I know his like hump club move where he would take 330-pound humans and like toss them aside like a child.
One of us on this screen was a 330-pound dude that got thrown by Reggie White. I'll let you figure out which one it was. But That was the one of the weirdest, greatest games of all time. That was Tasker's last game. It was either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Tasker's retiring. It's the last game of the season. Tasker gets thrown out of the game, the first punt return of the game. He inadvertently bumps an official and they throw him out. It was the weirdest game. I was calling Reggie White Mr. White during the game.
What is he supposed to call him?
And so we're in a timeout, and Reggie goes, "Hey, man, what's this Mr. White deal?" I go, "Hey, Reggie, remember you played for the Eagles?" He's like, looks at me. I go, "Remember that time you went to the Spectrum and at the end of the Sixers game, you gave a speech. It was FCA night." He's like, "Yeah." I go, "I was a 15-year-old kid in the stands, so you will be Mr. White to me." And he just started laughing. But anyway, Greg,
That's
I
awesome.
appreciate your time on the show. Thanks as always for explaining this cap stuff, and hopefully I'll have you on sometime in the future. And likewise, come on Cover One at some point. And,
Absolutely.
it's been great to get to know you. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
You do a great job, and thanks as always.
That means a lot, man. I appreciate this. Is a ton of fun.
All right. As always, folks, this is Big O Show. We'll be back next Wednesday, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, here on the here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. And we are presented by FanDuel. As always, folks, much love. Go Bills. We'll see you.
I'm still the same.